Hi, everyone, and welcome back to LTC Heroes Live by Experience Care. My name is Victoria, and I'll be your host for today. And today I am joined by Sylvia Bennett, the healthcare specialist and nurse consultant at MedNet Compliance. Welcome, Sylvia. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about mainly QAPI, right? I remember we met a couple weeks
Right.
ago, and you were very passionate about it. And I have to say, I'm very excited about this interview because I remember before meeting you, I always thought as QAPI as very complicated. I don't know what it is, if the acronyms or I don't know. I always thought about it as very complicated and very difficult to understand. And after we had that meeting, you explained it to me, and I was like, oh, that's common sense, really. So I'm really glad we had this conversation. I'm really glad we have you on the show today, so other people out there are going to be able to learn as I did. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's start with your initiation story, Sylvia. Tell us how you started working in long-term care.
Oh my. So when I graduated from nursing school in the mid 80s, 1980s, like a lifetime or two ago, I wanted to work at the Veterans Administration Hospital. That was my goal. I wanted to work in the med surg units. Well, I did work at Veterans Administration for a while. I had a teenage daughter who became more of a teenager as I gained more nursing experience. And I was working afternoons, and I really needed to work days in order to be home in the evenings to keep the teenage challenges down. So I had a friend who was a director of nursing at a long-term care facility, and she said to me, come work with me. I need an assistant DON, and I'll show you the ropes. And I was like, I really don't want to work in a nursing home. They're old people. They're confused. What do I want to, it's boring. So I went and worked with her anyways because I needed to control my daughter. And as I got accustomed to the facility, I really found the fascinating stories that the elders could share with me, and just the challenges of working in long term care. About 6 months in, as I was still learning what to do, my friend took a job as a state surveyor. And if you don't know, state surveyors inspect nursing homes to make sure they maintain compliance. And she said, oh, you'll do fine as the director of nursing. And she left me. And I was like, no, no, don't go away. Don't leave me. But I was already attached to the job and attached to the residents and the staff. And so that I remained in long term care gets under your skin. You get addicted to it quickly. And it's like reading the best mystery novel you've ever read, and you just can't wait to find out who did it. That's what almost every day working in long-term care is like at some level, because the residents can't always tell you what's going on, or if they do tell you, they can't tell you the whole picture. And so it's up to you as the nurse to figure out how to help them, how to give them that quality of life that they need in order to make their last years the best years. And I like to say their golden years shouldn't be gilded and tarnished. They should be actual real 14 karat gold. And if we're not making that happen, why aren't we?
That's beautiful. That's 100% it. So, in terms of your mission and purpose in long-term care, like I mentioned at the beginning, you're working as a consultant at MedNet Compliance.
Right.
And what are you trying to, first of all, what is your main job role there? What do you do for them? And also, what is kind of the mission and purpose of the organization in long-term care?
So, what we are is a compliance company, and we're a legal compliance company. So, what does that mean? That means that our role is to help long-term care facilities, all our clients, become the best they can be. We're the behind-the-scenes cleanup crew. We look at their concerns and then we guide them in the way that they can improve their care. So one of the main things I do, which I just absolutely love, when I found out about what they did, I was so impressed. If I would have had someone to do this for me when I was a director of nursing, my life could have been 100% better. So here's what it's called. It's called Rapid Response. It is a program designed to quickly help facilities identify the root cause of a problem and take steps to fix it. So let's say I'm a client and I had somebody fall and they fractured a hip and they're in the hospital right now. They fell yesterday. They're getting their hip repaired. I don't know what to do to fix this problem. So in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but no more than 20 minutes, I talk to them about their problem. I come up with an action plan or a plan of correction to address their problem. And then we look at, how did the fall occur? How are we going to keep other residents safe from falling? What education may be needed? What other indications do we need to look at? And then what do we need to audit to make sure that we did the right thing? And that we develop that right on that call. So in 15 or 20 minutes, they should be able to walk away with a plan to put in place to address the whole thing. If a surveyor were to come in, they would have that plan ready and in hand and say, here's what we're going to do. If a lawyer should contact them, they already have in place the pieces that they need to have to address if they're going to get sued. So that's
Yeah.
the plan. And there are 12 high risk problems that I have identified that occur over and over again, that facilities have majorly asked for those calls. That doesn't mean that we don't have some other calls in between, but there are 12 areas that I set up like little mini templates so I know what to
And
do.
we will definitely go over these 12. But before we do, because before we go deep into the deeds of QAPI, I do want to talk also about the sidekick job that you have that you just mentioned before this
Right.
episode to me. It's SJJ Education, correct? Did I get that right?
Yes.
So explain us, what do you do? What is the educational program about? Tell us more about it.
So I just started this a couple of months ago because I identified that people are just struggling with understanding QAPI. I also am certified as a dementia practitioner and a dementia trainer, and by the NCCDP. Sorry, I have to always think about how those initials go. But so I could actually train people and help them get their certification as a dementia practitioner. So I set up this website to provide education to nurses and healthcare providers that either want to get certified in dementia care or want to understand QAPI. So much of nursing in general, and especially long-term care nursing, depends on QAPI. So I thought if I can take this down to the least common denominator, people can begin to understand QAPI and not be intimidated by it.
For sure. And I remember our conversation a couple weeks ago. The first thing we talked about surrounding the topic of QAPI was the difference between quality assurance and performance improvement.
Right.
And so I want you to kind of give us a short kind of summary or explanation on that difference, because I do think it's very important to understand the whole thing. And you explained it really well to me. So I hope it's going to be helpful for others listening to us today.
Okay. So quality assurance or quality assessment means just that. You are just monitoring to make sure whatever you're doing is quality. So if you're making widgets, you want to make the best widgets ever made. If you're giving patient care, you want to give the best patient care ever made, but it doesn't take you to the other step. So now I'm checking to make sure my quality is good, and I identify that it's not. I don't have any plan for moving forward and making it better. Performance improvement says, let's take it to the next level. Let's fix what is wrong. Let's figure out how we can improve what we're doing and make it even better. When you meld the two is when you get something of worthwhile value. For years, for literally years, in factories, we've had quality assessment, but it's only maybe in the last 10 or 15 years that we've merged that with performance improvement so that we begin to take the next logical step. So we had a lot of statisticians looking at what's going on. And by the way, the MDS in long-term care is all statistics. If you don't like statistics, the MDS can make your eyes cross. But it's all statistics, and it looks at every angle of care that we provide. And you can take those statistics and you can say, how can we now take the next logical step? That's the performance improvement piece.
Yeah. So let's go in detail into what you do when you first do an audit. You first get to a facility. What is the first action step that you take in order to kind of evaluate how things are going on?
Well, here's my little best kept secret. I live in a wheelchair. I have a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos, or for short EDS. I can go into a facility, and as long as the administration knows I'm coming, I can go through the whole facility in a wheelchair. And because I'm older, I'm the little old lady in the wheelchair with gray hair. I just blend in and I get to see things that nobody else sees. And in a wheelchair, you are at a height where you're going to see things that the staff who are standing up are not going to see. So I am going to spot different problems. And then, of course, I know what I'm looking for. So I'm also going to see those as well. It's very fun to go and just sit around the nurse's desk and watch what the staff are doing and identify all those problems, and then go back to administration and say, okay, now go introduce me. And when I get introduced, people are like amazed. But I've been invited to attend activities. I've been invited to have snacks. They just they don't recognize that I might be anybody besides a resident, and it's an eye opener. I suggest that every DON sit down in a wheelchair and go through your building and take a look. You will be amazed at what you see. It's very different.
I love that. I love that idea. It's so unique, and it makes so much, like I said, common sense. So let's talk about those 12 indicators that you were talking about at the beginning.
So what you need to do in order to identify problems, any kind of problems, is you need to look at, why do I want to fix this? If everybody's wearing blue shirts and I hate blue, does it really matter? Is it going to make a difference? Probably not, unless there's some reason to not have blue on. However, there are things that are either high volume, problem prone, or high risk. Those are the pieces that you need to get a handle on. And in the hospitals, they call them never events, because you never want them to happen. I like the way my boss, David Barmack, talks about it. He says, if you would not want to read about it on the front page of the newspaper, you do not want it happening in your building. So those are the things that we look at. And those would include falls, burns of any kind, elopement, abuse allegations, neglect allegations, misappropriation allegations, elopement, choking, Unexpected deaths. I'm trying to think of the other three. Oh, resident to resident abuse, which is a really difficult one to address. And fire in the building, and any airborne or infection prevention issues. Those are the 12 top ones.
Yeah. And how do you, so you said one of the best kept secrets was just to kind of put yourself in the shoes of those residents and observe, right?
Right.
Do you have maybe an example or a real life situation where you saw that was successful, that you tried it and
Well,
it resulted in a success?
I have a story I like to tell from my years of being a director of nursing. And I think many of my clients have heard this story. But every long-term care normally has what they call morning meeting, which is really an ad hoc QAPI meeting, but people don't grasp that concept, so they don't take credit for that, which is the one thing we do in long-term care. We do lots and lots of work, but we forget to take credit for it. So anyways, in this long-term care morning meeting, I noticed that my falls were going up, because every day one of the things you look at is your incident reports, your grievance logs, your 24-hour reports, to try to catch the trends and patterns and identify those concerns. And then you, of course, address the immediate concern, but you develop interventions to ameliorate those concerns as quickly as you can. So anyways, I noticed the falls were increasing, and I was like, what the heck? And the falls were increasing at 2 p.m. I'm like, why 2 p.m.? My shift doesn't change till 3. So, you expect a little confusion at shift change, but it wasn't shift change. And I did all kinds of things. I went to every room and assessed what was going on. I evaluated all my residents. I looked at the fall risk assessments. I looked at any kind of risk like wet floors, lighting in the rooms, and I couldn't figure it out. I looked for, is there a specific aid, a specific unit? There was no trend that I could, identify outside of the time. So I finally drug a chair out in the hallway and sat down and watched what was going on. And I noticed that my dedicated and wonderful staff was going from room to room, restocking any supplies that they'd used and making sure that the residents were comfortable before the shift change. But what they were doing as they were going from room to room was saying to the residents, I'll be leaving in a little while and I'll see you tomorrow. Well, what the residents heard is, my favorite staff is going home. There will be no one to care for me. I'm going to need to take care of myself. And so when I identified that, I said to my staff, it's lovely that you're doing that, but stop saying goodbye to the residents. If you feel you have to say goodbye to them, wait till the next shift is here and then say, this person is going to be here to take care of you this evening. So in doing that, I cut my falls by 50% within a few weeks.
Wow.
And that's a perfect example of QAPI. You
Perfect.
audit, you set your expectations, and then you come back and audit again and to make sure it worked. The Deming developed this originally, and he was a specialist in auto manufacturing. And he tried to talk the big 3 car companies into sponsoring him, and they laughed at him. And he said, okay, I will take my studies to Japan. And he did, and the Japanese cars succeeded. And then the big 3 said, come back and help us. Well, and Deming said, sure, but for a lot more money than I start with. And so what it is, it's called the Plan, Do, Check Act or the Plan, Do, Study Act, and it's a cycle. So you plan, after you've identified your problem, you plan what you're going to do, then you carry it out, Then you check or study it to make sure that it's working, and then you act again. So you continuously are in this cycle of QAPI performance improvement.
Yeah. So my follow-up question for you, Sylvia, is regarding training and onboarding new staff, because as everybody knows, the long-term care is going through a huge staffing crisis. And so
Right.
there's always staff coming and leaving. And so do you have maybe tips or quick action steps that facilities can take to easily or as less painfully as possible teach and onboard their staff, their new
Yes.
staff about QAPI?
Sure. The first thing that people need to understand is QAPI is not just something that management does. It's something that every person can be involved in, and it will make your job better. It will increase your job satisfaction, and it gives you an opportunity to let others know what could be better. So that's the first thing. Take out all the abbreviations because they challenge people. The just saying QAPI makes a chill go up your spine, and you're like, what do all those letters mean? Well, just explain to them that this is our process to look at our work and make it easier and better. And then pick a QAPI audit and let the staff participate. For example, one of the QAPI audits I use is when there's care planning, I want to make sure that everybody understands what's in the care plan and knows their role, what to do. So if I'm a nurse aide, I just feel like I'm just a little peon in the big clog of the machine, and I have very little value. I'm just there to take care of the residents' personal needs. Well, that's not exactly true. So you pull up this audit, which I developed, which is basically taking the interventions in the care plan and making sure that the equipment's available, the staff knows how to use the equipment, and they're compliant in the use. So if the care plan says for fall prevention, Mrs. Jones is going to have foot pedals on her wheelchair, I need to go to the room and make sure Mrs. Jones has foot pedals for her wheelchair and that staff knows where those foot pedals are. And if they're not on the wheelchair, where are you storing them so you can access them easily? Then the next thing I need to make sure is staff know how to put those foot pedals on the wheelchair and when to take them off, when to put them on. And then I just need to go observe that the foot pedals are being put on the chair. So what I did with that audit is once I'd audited it a couple times to make sure I kind of had the feel for it, then I would give it to a nurse aide and say, today you're going to do this audit. Sometime in the future, one of your coworkers is going to be doing the same audit. And it's a teaching tool. Not only can you see how your coworkers are doing, they're going to see how you're doing, and you're all going to understand this is the interventions that you're supposed to be using. So, asking somebody to do an audit or delegating any task is not shirking your work. It is helping them to grow and learn. Delegation is one of the best ways to teach people.
For sure. Thank you so much for that explanation. That was really, really eye-lightning. So to wrap up the interview today, my last question for you, and it's around a topic that I know you like. You told me that you liked a topic about making DON's lives easier. And so my question is, of course, regarding QAPI as well. So what would be, because right now we know with the staffing crisis, directors of nursing are taking all kind of roles. But what would be the official right role that a director of nursing has in regards to QAPI?
The two roles that the director of nursing ends up stuck in, and I do mean stuck, really should be delegated to somebody else, but often aren't. Those would be making the schedule, which is very time consuming and does not require nursing knowledge, and passing medications. Those are huge time consumers. And, if the DON passes meds rarely, that's not so bad. But if you find yourself once or twice a week passing meds, how are you going to get your job done? Because the DON's real role is to be the leader, whether that's the leader by delegation, by example, by education. Every day, every action that the DON does is to be the leader. In order to be the leader, you have to inspect what you expect. You have to lead by example. So you have, let's say, for example, I am seeing an increase in infections, and my infection preventionist comes to me and says something's wrong. We're having an increase in infections on this unit. I might want to audit hand washing. I might want to delegate that to the infection prevention person, or I might want to do it myself. But either way, when the audit happens, if I go in the room and I'm going to answer a call light as the DON, I walk in the room to answer the call light. I shut the call light off. I talk to the resident. I take care of their needs. I leave the room. I didn't wash my hands when I came in. I didn't wash my hands when I left. What kind of example am I setting for the staff? They're going to see me doing that, and they're going to go, if she doesn't have to, I don't have to either. And that's where it's basic. QAPI is so basic. It's not about the main point of QAPI is not putting things on paper. That's important because you're taking credit for the work you do. But the work you do is observing and making sure that people know the right thing and people do the right thing. If you don't know it, you can't do it. And if you don't inspect it, it will not improve.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sylvia, for joining us today on the show. I'm sure our audience will find all of this very helpful. I'm sure I did. So thank you so much. It was really lovely to have you. And for
Thank you.
everybody else, we'll see you in another episode. Bye.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.